welcome, Pat, to the Intersection podcast by the Connect. We're thrilled to have you with us. And Raide has spoken about you and how from the beginning of this concept of us running this podcast, how you were one of those people that we wanted to have on and talk about basketball and marketing and all the things that come about. So the way we typically do this is I will let you introduce yourself, because I guess there's no better person to do that than you. So take it away.
Well, hey, first of all, guys, thank you very much. Like I'm honored and flattered that you think I could bring something interesting to the podcast offering. When you guys asked me, I was like, "Are you sure?" So this is I appreciate that. But name is Pat Cassidy. I am the global director of consumer marketing and athlete activation for New Balance. I've in my I don't know how many years long my career is, but the majority of it has been spent in and around basketball. And, we're at a really exciting time now where I feel like a lot of my experiences and learnings coming up in an entrepreneurial sense with my background does me good on a daily basis when we're trying to do things for the New Balance brand now, specifically when it comes to global basketball, global football, and other sports that we're engaged in.
Cool. And to take it back a little bit, so how do you got to where you are now? And as you mentioned, you've been involved in basketball. So when did it all start for Pat?
When did it all start? All right. So the brief overview of my journey, I guess. I'm from Philadelphia. I went to school in Boston. As the end of my 4 years in college came to a close, I was able to secure a job with the Philadelphia Eagles back home, and I was, I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to get started. Came home right after college. I started right away in the PR and communications department for the Eagles, and it really was a building block for me when I look back at like the path of when and why and how, all the things in my career, and each one of those stops has something that has helped me today. And that first one was how to engage with, work with, collaborate with, and get some level of cooperation from professional athletes, because my job was to basically convince NFL players to go and do media interviews, which they didn't always want to do. So that was an immediate intro into the professional sports world. From there, I parlayed some of my basketball interests and my work with the Eagles into a job with a digital startup called hoopstv.com that was based in the Philly area. They needed a writer for the copy for their website. I was one of the first people hired. I went in, part of my interview, I'll never forget, part of my interview was actually to go play basketball with the guys, which is like a dream interview. And it's really crazy. It's an amazing .com story. It was started as a spinoff of one of the founders of the sneaker company N1, and pretty quickly found myself not just being the writer of all the copy on the website, but flying around the country with a professional video crew in tow, producing video pieces and interviews with NBA players, college players, high school players, and playground personalities. My job was to produce and direct those shoots, come back to the office, oversee the editing of them, and then write the corresponding feature story with it. As a 23-year-old, 24-year-old, this, trust me, was the greatest job in the world, because I had that, and when I come back to the office, it was like this wonderful .com thing where it was like we'd go play basketball twice a day. There were ping pong tables, beer carts. 3 o'clock every day, all the lights would go off and everybody play video games. It was amazing. But .com story grew too big too fast. Some questionable decisions along the way. Came in one day after being there about 2 years. CEO was like, "Hey, sorry, we're out of money. Show's over. Everybody go home," type thing. And that was terrifying at the time. I just moved into an apartment in downtown Philly. Like everything was great, and then suddenly it was yanked out. So it was what now? What do we do now? So everybody kind of dispersed. Myself and a couple other people, we'd been talking about what maybe we could do something together next. We explored other professional opportunities that may have come our way. A lot of it involved working in a traditional office, which I had no interest in doing after my run of playing basketball twice a day and video games and stuff. But we came back and we kept coming back to the same thing, that the one thing that really worked really well at hoopstv.com was the content. People love the content. And we were focusing on in and around the lifestyle of basketball. So it was like cultural, cars, clothes, music, things like that the basketball players were into. And the traffic was great. I think at the height of Hoops TV's ascent, the only basketball website that had more traffic at the time was NBA.com. So people really loved it. We'd hear from people every day. The company's issue was it didn't know how to monetize that traffic at a scale that could keep the business going. But we knew people wanted this content. And what we kept coming back to is that there was nothing out there at the time on newsstands specifically that had the type of content that we were making, and that we ourselves as like basketball players and people in the like basketball culture who lived and breathed it want it. There's nothing out there, so why couldn't we give it to them? Why couldn't we be that outlet? So a couple of us, there was 4 of us to start. We're like, we're going to go make this basketball magazine. No idea how to make a magazine. Zero. No idea how to make it. No idea how to get it printed. No idea how to get it on a newsstand. No idea how to do anything. But we basically set out for like several months to just immerse ourselves in how we had to do this. Pretty quickly, we had a prototype, found designers, et cetera, and we basically built this magazine out of my apartment in Philly. And we built a prototype, and then we built the first couple issues. We were able to get Allen Iverson for the first cover, which was just like an immediate cosign, and man, it became a real thing. Over time, we started to get traction, more newsstand distribution, but like real traction specifically with NBA players because of how we approached it and how we were different. And then we're like, if we're going to do this for real, we got to move this to New York, because we found ourselves going to New York every couple days, basically, for meetings. So we packed up our lives, each one of us moved to New York. By then, pretty soon after, 4 of us became 3 of us, but we still kept growing. And over time, that's what we did for 10 plus years. We ended up publishing 75 issues of the magazine. We had a digital publishing network. We had an agency, a marketing and events agency that was connected to the magazine. It did a lot of work for Nike, ESPN, the NBA, the Brooklyn Nets. We partnered closely with Complex. And over time, our biggest agency partners were Red Bull and Converse. And then, so we just had this thing that we were building for over a decade in New York, and it was an amazing ride. After a while, personally, I just started to get burnt out on it a little bit. It was like, it was the thing every single day. Suddenly had 2 kids in Manhattan, and we just needed something different, right? Right about the time, I decided I needed something different. Luckily, that's when New Balance came calling. I talked to New Balance a couple years before that about an opportunity. It just wasn't the right thing at the right time. But when they came at this exact time, it was for the right opportunity, which was to build and lead a global digital department at New Balance. It checked all the boxes I wanted. I wanted something that was global. I wanted something that was digital first, and I wanted the chance to build something again, except with a little bit more resource around me. So I said yes. We ended up selling the magazine and the brand, and then I was outside of Boston, building digital, and did that. Overhauled our social media strategy, our in-house content creation capabilities, build a team, build a department, and that role evolved into essentially like a couple different steps along the way into what I do now. So here I am, and I've been in New Balance for about 7 years.
Awesome.
Great.
Actually,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's the typical, actually American dream type of story. You just have the idea, you don't have any clue what to do, and you just figure out a way to do it. And
no idea. That was a thing that happened so many times over the years. It was like, no idea how to do this, but we'll go figure it out. Like early on, we needed to figure out how to like secure money to print and ship a magazine, also to pay rent and feed ourselves.
Yeah, which is important.
Like working our connections in the sports industry at that point, and like our first like thing that we landed to help offset some of those things was like, one of our connections at ESPN was like, hey, can you guys build websites for our TV shows? Like, we need that right now. no idea how to build a website from scratch. We're like, yeah, sure, definitely,
Sure.
absolutely. Yeah. And it was like, oh man, now we got to go figure out how to build websites for ESPN. Well, we did it.
That's a good problem to have, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of thing, when you're young and at the time we were like not just stupid but also desperate because we desperately need to build this thing.
We call it passionate right now.
Yeah. We got to figure it out. So
yeah. No, it's an interesting story. It's an interesting story because that's kind of the type of thing of the people that we know and speak with here in the podcast has some sort of similar, let's say undertone in terms of how they are able to do what they are doing at this precise time or what they did recently, right? And it's about understanding that if you are in the space that you feel passion for, you kind of find your way quicker to figure it out, right? And then it's about that. No one knew that Amazon back in the day would be Amazon today. They were shipping the books themselves. I mean, it couldn't be more elementary than that, right? So it's very exciting.
We were shipping books.
You can always say I was a publishing impresario.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to add that to my LinkedIn today.
And that brings me to so your role today, obviously, it's informed by all those experiences that you had, and so can you tell us a little bit about what kind of day-to-day you do with your team, and since the global role must be all out of work.
It's there's some to it. So my day-to-day, it's like the focus is global consumer marketing, right? So we have key categories that are part of the New Balance global portfolio: running, lifestyle, basketball, football, tennis, all of our other sports, and the athletes and products associated within each of those categories. So we have really great teams that work on each of those categories and cross category together for how we're going to smartly link them at the hip for what you see out in the world from New Balance and how that comes through in our brand marketing overall. So each of those categories is like its own unique strategy and consumer that's linked up to who we want to be as a brand and how we do that, how we go to market with each of those. But within that, like we've been a running company for over a century, so it's like, how do you keep pushing and keep that fresh and compete? And we want to be the number one running brand in the world, but we also want to be one of the top global sports brands in the world. And so how does running play into that in all of our messaging, everything you see from us? Lifestyle is arguably the strongest part of our global business right now. How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it unique? But there's a lot of like really scary players that we compete with on a daily basis, and how do we carve our own niche, and everything we do is unique. And then the other ones, like the goal to be a top global sports brand, is relatively new for New Balance. It's really over the past like 5+ years that we've really invested in that. And whereas running has a century head start, these other sports are new. Like I think we've been in global football for maybe close to 7 years, and basketball's brand new. You can't be a top global sports brand without being really good in football and basketball. So that's a big part of the day, and how that's linked to all our other businesses across the board.
That's right. And that's interesting because like you attach yourself in basketball to, let's say, the player of the moment. What informed that decision to kind of jump on Kawhi? And I know you probably talked about this a lot.
No problem. Well, so the first thing that anybody saw from New Balance basketball officially was at the Charlotte All-Star game, two All-Star games ago. And what in reality, though, like we'd been building the strategy for basketball for well over 2 years before that, at least, maybe closer to 3. And we and I got to be honest, one of the reasons I wanted to come to New Balance was because I needed a break from basketball and basketball culture. It's like the basketball world is small. Like you guys know, it's small. Like everybody knows everybody. Like it's very, insular. And I just, after doing it every single day for so long, I needed a break. It would have been awesome to go be a fan again for a little bit. And at the time, New Balance didn't have basketball. And I was like, you know what? This would be good for me. Like this is one of the many reasons why this is the right next step. So when I said it before, but like when the company asked me about the thoughts about getting into basketball and what would we do, I was like, do not ask me to do this, please. Like, I don't want to do this. If we do this,
just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Yeah, they pulled me back in. And, I was like, we're gonna get killed if we try to do this the same way. And then to the company's credit, and it's a privately owned company, the Davis family, to their credit, we're like, all right, how would we do this differently to ensure that this is a real thing over a long period of time, and that we can do this in the right way? I was like, all right, let's go see what this could be. And our team basically worked on strategy for multiple years before we ever saw anything. And it was at the core of it, before we ever had a final shoe design, even on paper, or an athlete list or anything like that. It was, who do we want to be and how do we want to be different in the game? Right. So we built what I think is a really unique approach for the specific type of like player and partners that we wanted. Truly unique, embodying our own, because we're privately owned. We're an independent brand that doesn't have to follow the blueprints and the norms of all of our other competitors, that in a lot of ways leads to those brands exiting basketball pretty quickly every time they try to get in. We're not going to do that. So here's
the quarter race, quarter to quarter, try to keep energy. Yeah.
And that's the fastest way to drive a basketball company right into the ground. And so we can't do that. So here's our really like weird, unique plan, independent of everybody else, and how we're going to do this differently and be around and a growing player for a long time. So as part of that was like, we need to partner with athletes who embody that same independent mindset and want to do different things, and aren't content to just follow the same plan that their peers do, and aren't content to go and be one of 400 athletes with a brand. They want to be one of one or one of a couple, and they want to be in, have tons of creative input, and they want to be engaged, and they want to help in the design process, and they're going to want to be in lifestyle marketing. They want to want to go to Japan and China in the off season and be a global ambassador and do the work, put in the work for what is essentially a startup in a really, really tough space. Once you start applying those filters to athletes, the list of athletes that fit all the criteria that we laid out gets pretty small pretty fast, because there are a lot of athletes who like want the sponsorship route. Write me a check and I'll wear the sneakers, and that's worked and brands for a long time. We can't afford that. We need something different. We need everything you see from us to be different. We knew that from the beginning. Who's the most unique athlete boxes that wants to do something different and doesn't care at all what anybody else is doing? And that's Kahwi Leonard. And it happened to work out that he was becoming available right at the time that was probably a little bit early in what our general like long-term, because we had a plan of 12 to 15 years for basketball that we still have managed to stick to. We really didn't think we were going to, we weren't like building around the idea of getting a player of his magnitude right out of the gate, or even before we were even in the gate, but here he was, and he was the perfect guy. It's like, all right, this doesn't come along too often. We got to figure out how to make this work with this super unique guy. And at the time, we already had another crazy unique basketball player who was the first one to sign with us, was a kid named Darius Baisley, who was, I was like astounded by him as even before we even started to talk to him about New Balance basketball. The decisions he was making were completely opposite of what every single other player around him was doing, saying, thinking. And before, just when we were looking at press clippings of him when he was deciding not to go to Syracuse and not to go to the G League, we're like, he's saying the things that we say in meetings, except he's 17, right? He's 18. Like, we got to go talk to this kid. So Darius was actually the first one to like see our vision, understand it, and sign. And then Kawhi came a short time later. So they both are super unique individuals. They couldn't be more different personality-wise. But the thread that they both have is that they are crazy independent thinkers and independent actors in a sea of sameness, which is what the NBA can tend to be. So they're really like the markers, the beacons for us, and they've lived up to it every single day.
I want to
it's very cool.
Situate there, based on the heritage of the brand, as you say. I mean, you've been running a very respectable running brand forever, with very unique differentiation in terms of where the product is made, where the styles and everything that infuses the brand comes from, and that you are entering this playing field, right, very hard, in my opinion, with very robust characters. And if you look at from the outside, I mean, and you say Ronald Acuña or Kawhi or Sadio, you can tag these guys and in any formal fashion. I mean, you cannot find a similar player like them in their sports. How I guess that comes from also the way the company is run, right? But how you make those decisions in terms of vetting, not only from the technical side that checks the boxes of what we want to be as a brand, but how we pick a person that we want our brand to be in his mouth and in his body, right? And actually be able to embody the brand.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm fortunate enough to have been part of the way we have evolved thinking about sports marketing partnerships, never sponsorships, but always partnerships. And there's been a real change on how we approach that at New Balance, specifically over the last few years. You can almost like draw a marker. You can put a marker in the sand as like when the first like real change in that sense happened for us, when we were thinking about like hyper unique athletes who were independent thinkers who want to do something different. And that was, I feel like the first athlete that got on board that was really like that, at least with this new mindset, because we have plenty of like wonderful independent thinking athletes all around the world and all these other sports, but for us to like go after someone we thought that was going to embody that, and then more than did so, was in baseball with Francisco Lindor. And I remember, he was his contract was coming up. He was giving off all the signs of somebody who wanted something different, thinks differently, acts differently, doesn't care at all about where a lot of other athletes are going and signing. We went and had several conversations with him about this new mindset and the type of athlete that we were looking for. And all on the way, he was like, yeah, I'm in. Absolutely. Like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm for. And I remember having a conversation with him that has been repeated with other athletes, same type of conversation, because you need to get to that. We're like, hey man, like if you sign, like you're stuck with me. You're going to be hearing from me and the team and New Balance in general a lot. Like all these things that we say that we're pitching you that we want to go do. This isn't like some other brand or some other agency that says we're going to do all these things and then sort of has no intention of ever doing that. You say yes, we're going to go do these things. And then he was like, oh, man, I love that. I'm in. And there has been so many things that were even in that original pitch, like document, talking through with Lindor. We went and did every single one of them. And there were small things like, apparel and cleat projects to, I promised him that we would take him to global football matches in Liverpool. Like that next summer, where we were in Liverpool, we promised to take him to Japan. We were in Japan. Like these are things that we go and do. Like we can't afford to not do that. We have to be different. We have to do different things with our athletes. So the template that we built with Lindor, we have then applied to all these other sports. And that's when you see the athletes, and it's not just Darius and DeJounte Murray and Kahwi Leonard, which was the same exact approach. It's Sydney McLaughlin in track. It's this wonderful budding partnership that we have with Coco Gauff in tennis. It's Ronald Acuña, like you said, and the list goes on. And it's the same conversation that we have with athletes and potential team partners and league partnerships. It's the same type of mindset of we can't afford to not be super unique and differentiated in the space. We just can't. We're not as big of a player as our competitors, and we're gonna, we're trying to like outpunch our weight every single day, and we can't do it unless there's something crazy unique. And that goes across even into like our lifestyle ambassadors and collaborations. Same type of conversation with Jaden Smith, right? And any other ambassador that we talk to. We're saying we want to do these things. We're going to go do them. And like, if, please do not sign unless you want to be part of this and want to do the work. And that has scared off some people in the past, and that's fine. We would have rather found out then than down the road.
Yeah, then after the contract, yeah.
Yeah, totally. But everybody else is like, everyone who said it, yeah, let's go. And it has almost universally paid off.
That's awesome. It's like, for me, New Balance is a brand, and obviously, historically, running brand has been established, and coming from the Dominican, you always saw it in those terms. And then later on, you always saw Steve Jobs wearing those dad shoes, and that's kind of like the reference that it was always in my head every time I thought about New Balance. But then I saw all this little movements that were being, or not little, but there's movements that were taking place. And then when you hit with Kawhi and basically and I was like, whoa, they're onto something different here. So that's interesting.
Well, that's the hope. I'm glad that's the takeaway.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the brand. I mean, I've been here in Europe over 15 years now, and it's a very, very well-known lifestyle brand. So I mean, that's kind of the positioning it has in certain markets still, but then kind of hit me in terms of kind of the reset that you did in football, because it was in a time that it wasn't even convinced that was the space. It wasn't convincing in that way. That has happened also to other brands as well. As you say, when you are into the basketball game or global football, you need to be able to commit and actually go always the extra mile, right? And I would say that it landed for me, and it was a brand that I could identify as to be in the long run, talking about global football a couple of years ago. So it's the brand that accompanied, and unfortunately the deal ended now, but Liverpool, which is kind of the beloved club of everyone in Europe, is like that mantra, you never walk alone. But actually the moment it materialized in a star that everyone wanted to be like or actually connected on a human level was with Sadio. And I remember that on the World Cup in Russia, that he scored one of the first games in Senegal, and it was a perfect clear shot. You could see the shoe and everything. And I mean, I had to, and I sent a text to Chris, so shout out to CD, and say, this is it. I mean, you made it. Now you need to keep it, going, right? But this is it. This is what you aim for, right? It was that moment, yeah.
That moment, though. That moment. Lots of tears, like tears of joy in that moment. But that moment, like the lead up to that was, the guts to like start a restart in strategy, probably for how we were approaching football with our roster of athletes who belong, like who are the athletes that embody the stuff that we were just talking about. We had that same conversation with Sadio in this is a partnership, not a sponsorship. Like, you're going to be in it with us, and like we want you to be in it with us. And he's wonderful every step of the way. But culmination of that sort of like guts to restart, the obsession that the company has with making the absolute best performance product, and like specifically bespoke for these athletes, came to, I don't know, I probably shouldn't even talk about this. I don't even think he really did much testing of that boot before that match and that goal, but he had confidence in what we were doing to go and wear it the biggest moment, the biggest stage of certainly his life and his professional journey at that point, but also New Balance's. And man, it came through, and it's been like it has set the stage for so many other things. That says a lot about him and his trust and belief in what we had done for him. And like, the product stuff speaks volumes, right? Like even the whole basketball journey before we ever had like anything really going. And this is not just like the company line. Like I never once worried about whether or not we can make a great basketball shoe or shoes. Like that's what we do, right? We have incredible talent, incredible designers and product people who are going to make this amazing. My sleepless nights were, could we make people care about it and believe in us through the marketing, right? Like right. That still keeps me up across the board in all those sports. But like, man, getting back, but like the belief in the product that we're going to make the best thing for some of the best athletes in the world is like, you can't beat that. And that as a foundation, that's incredible. And then all the other stuff on top of it with how athletes are investing in us with them to build these unique things is amazing. And Sadio is like, couldn't ask for a better guy, a better partner.
And it shows. I mean, and that's something that is very distinctive when you're doing partnerships that are mutually of interest and beneficial. You see both parties, enjoying the ride. And whenever you see Sadio in a shoot, in a campaign, I really dig the behind the scenes of the New York activation when they went playing over the summer last year. He was having fun. I mean, that's something that, for him was important to be able to find that space. And, he is a guy that is very not like the rest of the footballers on the personal side, actually. So it's amazing. It's a great story. So congratulations, man.
Thank you. I mean, so many people involved in making all that stuff work with him. And I can't wait for you guys to see what we have coming up with him.
Man. I'm
very short.
Looking forward to it. And it's great, like, to see how, coming back to like the whole evolution of the brand, and then adding all this personalities and these people that are invested in, and also creating a successful partnership with you guys, and you having then from that this serendipitous moment where you have like all these great moments in those sports happening, like we just described with Sadio on the World Cup and the shot with Kawhi and things like this. And,
I mean, 2019 was insane.
Yeah. Everything was working.
Yeah. As a storyteller, you must be incredibly like, okay, where do we start? Like, we can bombard.
It gave us such like, man, all the stuff, all the bets that we had placed seem to be coming up, right? Like the success of Liverpool, the personal success of Sadio, Kawhi's ascendance to like this, force of nature, not just an unbelievable player, but a force of nature to like can't be denied athlete. The rise of Coco Gauff, right? Like all these things were all happening sort of at the same time or one after another, and it gave us confidence to like, we had this essence of like that theme that we had built for basketball before we had that, like I was talking before we had that shoe design done. Like, we had the idea of the mantra was we got now, because like everybody talks about what's next, but like we thought that we could be the brand of the moment. And whether that was foolish at the time or not, or it turned into a thing where like, look at everything our athletes are doing, even like down to, all of our track athletes around the world and skate athletes and all these things, like they were all winning and achieving, and their unique personalities were at the forefront. It gave us the confidence to launch a 2-year brand campaign, elevating We Got Now from just basketball to everything we were as a brand. And that has paid off for that. We truly believe that every day. It was, that campaign launched this year. It was altered a little bit by COVID-19 stuff, but we don't not believe in that. Like that, we still feel like We Got Now speaks volumes for who we are as a company and with our athletes at the forefront. And it's not something that we're going to back off of, because we feel like we've earned that. And here we are.
You own the now, man. I mean, it's something to be proud of. I mean, I'm telling you. So actually, I'm just subverting Luis' timetable now. So this is my favorite part when I kind of go off script. I want you to take us, at least in what's possible, through that process of your team trying to define which are the codes that you will activate or integrate into the communication, and how you can prepare for the unexpected, which is a monster shot in the playoffs and a title, and how that needs to feel organic into that campaign that you have planned for before, right?
Yeah. We spent a lot of time building out planned versus unplanned scenarios, right? There's plenty of planned things that we can usually bank on. Start of an NBA season, Champions League schedules, things like that. We know where some of these big moments are going to be. But we also have the belief in being able to place big bets on when our athletes and ambassadors are going to rise to the occasion and being prepared for that. So it's this mix of things that we can knock out and put into planning well ahead of time. But if Coco Gauff wins the U.S. Open, or if an incredible shot or wins a championship, or Sadio scores in a Champions League final match, how are we, like, what are all the things that are already in place that are ready to be activated as soon as that happens? We have to be the lessons that we've learned over the last couple of years with the successes. How do we be more nimble? How do we be faster? How do we be aggressive and not be afraid to take chances, even if that's getting things ready to go for something that might happen and then it doesn't, and that's a shame. That's too bad, and you have to shelve the stuff. But at least we were ready, right? So the ascension of Kawhi, specifically last season, taught us those lessons in real time, right? Breaking down like some process things that might have been, in place for a long time, to be able to know we got to act now, right? So he hits that shot against Philly, Game 7. We were able to turn, whether that be Fun Guy T-shirts in mass or giant billboards in Toronto that say Fun Guy on them, like 24 hours after. That's something that we weren't used to doing, right? And it's started to be a muscle that we need to constantly work to be able to, like, hey, we have our plans. This doesn't change our plans, but we have to be fast in the moment, right? So we have, if you guys could see the scenario planning documents and calendars and things like that we have for planned and unplanned, there's a boatload of unplanned stuff that we are constantly, and that could be everything from new athlete announcements and signings to player transfers to if-win moments on the calendar for all of their competition schedules. It's pretty robust, but it's getting everybody on the same team to think the same way. And it's not just like pressing a button and go. There's NewBalance.com, e-com presence. There's apparel teams. There's footwear teams. There's retail partners. There's PR partnerships. There is email blasts. There is the athletes themselves. There's all these things that are all involved in each one of these things. And you have to be, for us at least, we have to be fast. And we have to be able to, like, jump on those moments, use those codes, like you said, to, like, be in and of the conversation and own our news best we can, to set us apart from our competitors that of who we are and how we operate.
Excellent. So, I mean, congrats to the team, because the Billboard game, especially the out-of-market Billboard game, was excellent last year. Run.
Yeah, we were pretty proud of that. That was like, can we say this? We should say this type stuff. And but it's why wouldn't we? We're playing with house money at the time, and in a lot of ways we still are. And it same thing, like, around stuff, the things we have planned around Sadio for stuff like that, things we have planned around Coco. Like, we released, the U.S. Open didn't work out for Coco as well, but like this year, but the confidence we had around her and have around her for who she is as a player and a person. We had videos of her that we were able to take over in Times Square ahead of her first U.S. Open match. Like, don't know if we would have had the confidence necessarily in any athlete or anything we're doing maybe a couple years before, but like, no, this is Coco. We are building her on this path to like can be, and we're going to invest and be able to move and operate in ways that we, traditionally may not have done, but now is the time.
And in this line, I know that you were aware of the very sensitive topic that is on the table now, which is like maybe the overconsumption of digital mediums. And as an expert as you are in that, what do you think is next? What's your take on it, on what's happening now, and what do you think is next for brands and communicators like yourself to be able to tell the stories
in the medium, like digital medium specifically?
Yeah.
It's interesting because it goes in waves, right? Like a couple years ago, if you were like, hey Pat, like you're going to be thinking a lot about billboards and TV commercials, I'd be like, get out of here. No, like that's
no way.
Nope. That's a ridiculous way to spend your budget. Right? We're digital first, we're mobile first, but now it's like, you know what, we can operate the mix. We need to be amazing in the digital space, digital first, and the way that we approach digital distribution specifically to get our content seen at scale, I think is better than pretty much any other brand that's out there. In the way we approach it in terms of like our strategy and efficiency to get that digital content seen at scale by the right people at the right time on the right platforms. And that's bread and butter. That's the heart of it. That's like, it doesn't matter if it gets seen. It doesn't matter if it doesn't get seen, right? Like you can have the greatest content in the world, but if you don't see it at scale by the right people when you want them to, and get them to act or respond in the way you want them to, you what are you doing, right? So like,
yeah,
that's an evolving thing that always needs to get better, and I think we're really good at it, and we're getting better by the day. But then there's that other stuff around it, right? So like to get back to the billboards and TV commercials, when we press go on those things, it's like, because we feel like it's, hey, this is a special moment, we're going to make it count, right? The Kawhi billboards showed us that, but then like that evolved into, in LA for months heading into the beginning of this season, we had bus wrappers and other signage just saying, flat out saying, the best player in the world wears New Balance, right? I mean, that's a level of aggression and a swipe, and like, and not even a picture of Kawhi. It was the best player in the world wears New Balance, and a picture of our basketball sneaker. And people in LA knew exactly who we were talking about. And we would have ever really like thought about truly before on how that's almost like the cherry on top as like a brand thing. But that's really important. The use of the confidence in our athletes and our content to elevate some of these spots that we're building around Kawhi. We've done TV spots around Sydney McLaughlin, who's our top track athlete, broadcasting Coco Gauff videos in Times Square. Like these are like big broadcast like things that are almost like elevated from what we would do to be incredible digitally. It's and capping it out with this mix of who we are. So, but anytime we do anything like that, it's got to be smart. It's got to be sharp. It's got to be like witty, self-aware, different than what you would expect from or what you're used to seeing from other brands that we think we're really different from. So if it doesn't have that special feeling to it, we're not going to do it. So anything that you've seen out on a TV commercial, a billboard, wrapped on a bus, whatever it is, it's because we feel like that's pretty good, and it's not something that another brand would do. And so if you can draw that connection from what you're seeing digitally all the way through to what you're seeing, outside your apartment window or whatever, I think we've done a good job.
Definitely, because I mean, it doesn't matter how massive the media spend is. If you're not able to cut through and actually be creative and retain top of mind of people, I mean, it's pointless. And that process, that creative process, allows you to actually get efficiencies in the way you do media as well. So yeah, your textbook on that.
That media, the digital landscape, not just with digital, but like efficient distribution of digital assets at scale is the great leveler of the playing field. If you can, the way we approach it is, if you can make a penny spend like $10,000, like suddenly that gap is closed with your competitors, because I don't believe that everybody approaches it in the same way. So I think we're really good at it, and we're getting better, and it gets us, it puts us in the same field as everybody else, and that's a win.
Since we're running up to the hour here, and this is a topic that we didn't want to avoid. I mean, you're a basketball guy, you're a Philly guy.
Wait! I know where this is going. I have.
Where are we going? What are we doing here?
I had two more technical questions before, please, because I know that this will take probably another hour that we need to, scrap from the recording and everything. I don't want to mess up post-production here.
Fine.
I had two quick questions. One is on the approach. I mean, we discussed about how New Balance approaches partnerships with their athletes and their endorsers of the brand. And I wanted to get 2 cents on how you pick other brands to which you collaborate and cross-pollinate, which is something that is very natural in that space that you play in lifestyle and now performance as well, and how those lines blur, right? But how you select those partners to actually co-create product and stories?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, we approach partners and potential partners in the same exact way that we have those conversations about potential athlete partners, right? Unique point of view, not like everybody else. How can we do something that's totally different? So everything you see from New Balance, whether it is in basketball or lifestyle or partnerships out in the world, continues. Ideally, you're always surprised by what's next. It's not the same play over and over again. I think that is really evident in our lifestyle collaborations that we do, right? We put such a huge emphasis on who we partner with and how you see that come to life. And I think that's a real marker for us, right? Like this past month, we had a partnership that was launched out of our design studio in Japan with a brand called Snow Peak that was like innovation in terms of product. And not only was it great footwear, but it was apparel. It was with like a fishing and camping theme where you could like take, like there's like 3 shoes in one that you can go fishing in and then camping in. And it's still like the third part of it is still like a really like killer lifestyle look, right? So it's just like, it's constantly changing things. So like our growing partnership that we've had with NYC-based Aimé Leon Dore, that has like been manifesting itself in lifestyle and in basketball and running, these other ways. They're unlike partnerships that anyone else is doing. They're with these, there's so many of these like lifestyle entities in the world that kind of are just like a turnstile for brands to go to. And like, they're talking about one brand this week, they're talking about another brand the next week, they're talking about another brand the next week, and then it starts all over again. We don't want that. We can't have that. And so that is where we are building these long-term partnerships. And you can go down the line and see who we're talking about, whether it is the aforementioned Snow Peak, ALD, Casablanca, based out of Paris. Like these are partners that are completely unique in the space, and they're not just one and dones for us, but we are in the same way that, we build a partnership with Kahwi Leonard and we hope it's forever. That's the same way we're going with these super unique brands in the lifestyle space.
I mean, I have friends here asking me, what is a Jolly Rancher? I mean, for you to know how influential that is in the middle of the NBA playoffs.
Right. Yeah. And that's the kits around how it's being distributed and stuff like that. It's just like, it's something that you've never seen from us or anybody else. I can't wait for it to see the world very shortly.
Oh, excellent. And I have the last question before Luis goes personal. We're just entering fourth quarter, right? And this probably has been the maddest year of our lifetime. Yep. And a lot of plans have been changed and so on. So as much as you can tell us, what we expect from New Balance in terms of all of those traits that we just discussed, in terms of the work or the co-creation with the athletes, with partners, with the brand narrative towards 2021?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the past 7 months they've changed everybody, for so many reasons. Everything that's been going on in the world, from pandemics to the much needed light on social justice issues, have changed everybody. I think there are consumers globally, people every day expect certain things from brands that they love. They expect the brands that they love, that they have emotional connection to in one way or another, to have some sort of depth and message and like something more than just like marketing words and images. They need to have something behind it. And I think that we're one of those brands that people expect more from. So you're going to be seeing that it's already started, but as we look towards 21, how does the idea of our brand mantra we got now, how does that evolve to have more of that, even more of that depth to it? How are we adapting our brand message? You're going to see it across all of our sports. You're going to see how we evolve as the brand of the moment to do all of these things moving forward. So what I can tell you about 21 is that you're going to see some really compelling brand evolution stuff that starts at the top with the most outward facing things, but stuff that we have coming in all of those sport and other categories like lifestyle and running. It's like nothing we've ever done, right? So like momentum we have on the sports marketing side, athletes and potential new athletes, more of just hyper compelling collabs across these categories, and how we're evolving. We are never going to be better than we are coming up in very short order, and can't wait for it to happen. So that's pretty vague. That's pretty vague, but I can't give too much of
enough to get me hooked and do another Google alert on you.
So definitely considering this past few years, I mean, come on, if it's gonna be better, I'm excited for it. But I'm also excited to really dive into this your Philly affiliations.
Let's do it.
So let's start with basketball, right? So I don't know how to put this.
Next year,
So what happened? What is your take on what happened?
Man, it was really disappointing.
You can't blame the bubble. Huh? Let's not blame.
I don't blame the bubble at all. I actually thought I talked myself into the bubble was going to be helpful in that sense. I just adaptability, willingness to adapt to change in style of play and clear deficiencies just wasn't there. Inability. It makes me sad and drives me crazy watching these other teams, the way they play. After I watch every single Sixers, Phillies, and Eagles game, and there's a lot of games. So I'm highly invested in all of these things. But then when you watch how the Sixers play compared to these other teams that are in the playoffs, it's not even the same. It's not even the same sport. No. It's really upsetting. It ruins your week to think about it. But man, I hope we focus the offseason on how to defend a pick and roll. I think we need.
That's now great. Get into the specific basics and fundamentals.
It seems to be a vital missing piece. So I hope I want us to make the right decision with coaching and personnel, and a new voice in there, and one that is able to adapt to more of the trends of the current game for where we're seeing success. And I don't know if we're necessarily playing that way right now or constructed that way to compete with.
So you got 08, you got 18, 28.
Oh man, if we have to wait to 28, that's a problem.
I don't know. I'm just saying, kind of. I don't know if I can frame it on Philly terms. There will absolutely be a championship in the greatest city in the world before 28.
All right, you heard it here.
I think there are I think there are athletes on each of those major teams that are have potential to be transcendent in the sport. So we have a lot to build around. If we can just if we can right the ship a little bit in a couple different ways, I think there's real success. But that's the Philly in me, that we're like, of course we're going to win. We're about to win. You know?
We're about to win.
No brainer. No, but to be honest, in terms of storied franchise with a lot of history and what it means to the communities and so on, I think the Sixers are due, a shot at glory. I mean, finals, and let's see what happens.
When we went to the finals in 2001 with Allen Iverson,
the answer.
I was like, if you told me that was the last time that we would come close. That's a long time ago at this point. It's
a lifetime.
It's a lifetime. And you mentioned your love for the Phillies as well. And I remember I was living in Atlanta when the Phillies pulled that off and won the World Series. And like I told you before, I have a friend who also a Philly guy through and through, Seton Hall Sports, the whole thing, like the guy, not Seton Hall, sorry, Villanova Sports and all that. And it's
great guy.
Huh?
He sounds like a great guy.
Yeah. Okay, I kind of like it.
Okay, whatever.
Not that much. Whatever. And it was after the Phillies won, it was the most, most annoying time of my time in Atlanta was after they won the World Series. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, describe how it felt to win the World Series for you, and how you felt.
To see if it was the same.
Yeah. So, it's like if all of you are crazy.
So of all the teams, I gotta say the Phillies mean more. My family grew up. I like to say we grew up within the Phillies organization, right? So when they had the old Veterans Stadium back in the day, my grandfather ran operations at the stadium. My dad worked there. My mom worked there. That's where they met. All of my uncles, all of my cousins worked there. So I grew up like within the walls of that stadium. So the Phillies mean more just because of what it's been for my family. So when we won, sorry about the alarm. I don't know what that is. There's somebody delivering something outside. But when the Phillies won, man, that was like Eagles won, just going crazy. Phillies won, I think I just cried. Just like man, for an organization like that, and also I don't know if you guys know, but the Phillies have the most losses of any professional sports team in the world in history. So there's been a lot of character building over the years. So for us to win, that was just something more.
More.
Extra special. I get that.
I mean, I think they're cooking something interesting there. The season is kind of weird altogether and short, extremely short. Yeah. But you got Bryce, and they have that belief now. That's what you get when you see recent trophies in the room. It's not that long ago, right?
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
Well,
the building blocks are there.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And what a great city it is. I have to say that. I mean, in terms of sport,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I have to say.
I've never been to Philly.
Oh man,
I'm missing out.
I know. The world. Yeah, we'll go when this is all over. We'll go.
So we want to put it on the books. We need to make that.
Yeah. I think we're about to wrap up, Luis, right? So I want to say
we're a few minutes over.
Yeah, definitely, and we don't want the censor department to run us over. No, but yeah, I wanted to personally thank Pat for his time and his always entertaining conversation on the record and off the record. And I wanted to answer your question, why we ask you. And the only phrase that comes to mind is that game recognizes game. And when you speak with many people around the industry, around the basketball world, and they say, that guy is a real one. I mean, for us, is the real honor. As you know, this is an experiment gone steady, and and having guests like you actually, make us better and make us learn a lot. So really, thank you for your kindness.
Oh man, thank you. That's so flattering to hear, and I don't think I deserve that, but thank you, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
So thank you, Pat. So that will be all, and really thank you for your time. And I can't say anything better than what Raida said. That was beautiful. So, but it's also true. That's how I feel as well. So
that's great, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.
All right.
This episode is brought to you, as always, by The Connect. The Connect is Raida Luis Baez. Follow the Intersection podcast in your favorite podcasting platform. Leave us a review and share it with a friend. This will really help us be found by more of you interested in the topics of sports marketing and deal making. Until the next one.